they're assuming, see, all the jurisdiction of the United States is an assumption.
Yeah.
Because Indians don't know.
It's like,
So they have to take an assumption, but they put the assumption with the conditions of guardianship, alienation, and severalty. Now,
So, I wanted to show you the document we put out in response to our charges. We're also on charge, myself and my wife.
see, there's only two people that have ever beat the Clean Street Act in the United States.
You start saying the Clean Street Act, and I never, as far as I got was that, and you switched to something else.
The Clean Street Act, okay, first of all, let me tell you the history of the Clean Street Act. The United States, because of high cost of living, had to find another source of income. So they followed the old one of England. I don't know if you remember the old England one, the East-West organization, which grew dope and sold it to the nations. Well, the United States did the same thing too. They hired a guy called Timothy Leary, who was a scientist, to produce a new type of grass and cocaine. But the grass and cocaine had to be different than the other ones because it had to be something in it that they could control the populace. So he did it. He developed the grass and cocaine that the United States grows every day of the year in Colombia. The Colombian cartel is only the dope that these guys are able to steal from these farms of the United States. Got that? The Clean Street Act is to put these guys that stealing United States dope into prison. That's all it is.
The real peddlers.
That's all it is.
The government doesn't want competition.
That's right. So who in the hell in this country receiving prime dope number one legally? You have that answer and you'll have them get rich tomorrow.
Oh, the government officials.
Shit, I watch it. Goddamn, I used to watch a goddamn gasoline truck come on the reservation, right?
See,
and I can even tell where the dope is below on the bottom of it, geez, because dope in the sweat's different than gasoline.
So that means that's why the cigarettes have to be cut out because the government don't like competition back
That's right.
Even here.
Right.
They only want to be the legal ones that can do it in their system.
Right. Like Silver Creek School here. They was raising hell with my kids, and I said, okay. I says, according to the Congressional Act on Indian Education, so much dope is to be distributed to the Indians attending the school. I said, but the Indians never receive it. And I says, who in the community receives it? And they never said another word to me again. Never had no problems anymore.
There's actually a congressional act saying that you're supposed to get.
See, I quote a lot of the men because the white man understands that. You understand? He understands that you know the law. See, it's not an Indian world out there. Don't kid yourself. Your problem is white. It's not Indian. Isn't it? So they use Indians to do it because there's a certain problem with jurisdiction there. See, no Indian can have any charge or criminal act against them unless an Indian gives it away to have it done. They cannot do it just because they feel like it. They gotta do it because an Indian gave them the right. Gotta look among your own people now.
Whether those Indians have a mandate or not.
I'm sorry, man. They got it from somewhere. They just didn't find it on the street corner, believe me. Indians sat down there and Shit, they probably had an old scrawny, the way these Indians go for women around here, I don't know, I don't understand it. Shit, when I come from, man, they got good-looking Swede Norwegians. I mean, when you climb on that, boy, you're climbing on something. Not these goddamn refrigerators you have out here. But that's the way it's done. Done behind closed doors.
Yeah. That's what Stan Cohen did up in Akwesasne.
Yeah.
That lawyer for the people in Akwesasne and up in the TC. When he first got up there, he brought his secretary with him. And she started taking the boys out for a ride for 2 weeks. Then he stopped bringing her. But once he got his...
Then they really got hungry, right? Then they're ready to sign anything.
Can I read you this, what we ordered the government to adhere to? Now this
You
is
never tell a white man what to do. I mean, you never suggest what the white man should do. You command him what he is to do.
okay. We are Ashnewuchi Nehiak, which is Rocky Mountain Creek. We are also Ochipawak, or white man says Ojibwe, who came there in the 1800s.
You know where you originally came from?
Yeah,
Where?
east.
Huh?
Here, in the east.
That's right. New Jersey. You were the people that first signed away no alcohol on a reservation. Boy, did they use that good on us, huh?
What we did was serve notice in this statement. It explains why. This is our elders' court, which 4 different nations are a part of. We hereby serve notice to you and all your other branches that your assumption of jurisdiction no longer applies within our territorial boundaries. We have informed your government through our declaration of sovereignty enclosed herein of our intentions and our concerns for the future of our national homeland. Self-determination for indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere has been recognized and affirmed by the United Nations Commission on Human Rights in regard to our position on treaty rights and jurisdiction, as well as Indian sovereignty beyond the treaty frontier.
Nationals, this court and its officers could not have protected the defendant from injuries or even death, which the defendant knew at the time when dealing with his Iranian nationals. The defendant knew if he did not make the purchase of cigarettes and a weapon, he faced possible death, and the one who committed the crime will never be found. Or ally.
Ali, I got the name there. I forgot your name was yours. Or Ali Afani.
Bonnie on the end of John Doe's in the Iranian culture.
What is it? Their names are what? Are John Doe's.
John Doe's.
So you can't trace them to their property in Iran. That's an agreement they made.
In the Iranian culture, and the defendant has no protection from death due to the fact that protection granted to Iranian nationals.
But is that what you needed or not? That's the mood. That's it.
That's
When did they receive this immunity from prosecution?
I only know since '81. I don't know, but I think it started when the United States started dealing with weapons to free the prisoners in Iran.
Reagan.
Yeah. All I know is that court case, I found that one. You gotta remember, there's one in Oklahoma and there's one in Texas. You got in every one of these cases, the United States Justice Department shipped the Iranian out of the country because the Indians were now down to where they were going to shoot him because the Indians knew they had immunity, right? There was nothing you could do, so the only way to do it is blow him away. That's why when he was in your court of law, guess how many royal Mounties were standing around him?
Well,
That's right, because the death sentence is on them. Now when I talked to some Indians, they weren't cared about it. They didn't give a shit about his name. Because they know they changed that just like changed the days of the week. They wanted to know what he looked like. They wanted a picture of him. And I said, I can't provide that, you know, which I can't. And that's what you're dealing with.
Is that even in Canada, they have that immunity for prosecution?
That's right.
So that means every case that this,
Huh?
or, see, he followed me 4 different jurisdictions. Cornwall, Ottawa, Hamilton, Brantford.
With this guy?
Yeah, that means. So that means all those cases would be a collapsing case.
Right. But that's how you fight law.
With law.
Huh?
Fight law with law.
Right. And nobody's supposed to be brought into a court of law without a remedy, are they?
Right.
And you have no remedy with an Iranian nationalist. He's got full plug all the way.
That's why they stated in court that he wasn't an RCMP, he was an agent of
That's
the
right.
RCMP.
Now you take that, you put his name in, you see where it puts your name in, that sort of stuff. Now you gotta file that with your court you're in. You have to give one to the prosecutor. You have to give one to the court where you file everything. And of course you give one to your attorney. Your attorney's gonna fight you like hell.
So he's
Because, huh?
fired.
You know why? Because this immunity is issued by a court order from the judge. For all officers of the court must obey this court order. And your attorney is an officer of the court.
This information itself is the same as what Bruce is saying to you. The appeal process and then your sovereignty. Notice. Serve notice to the court. They don't have jurisdiction. Your sovereignty is.
See, this is gonna go in front, and we're filing a jurisdictional dispute over
Right.
behind it.
Right, but see, the thing is, right now, if they got jurisdiction, they gotta give you equal protection of the law and due process.
We'll see everything.
And which, with that, you don't have any. Now, wasn't that simple? Now, wasn't that simple?
It states here, the duty of protection upon the court exists only so as to prevent the federal and provincial governments and their citizens from entering your territory and in consequence breaching your sovereignty.
Right. That's true. But they reached it.
They did already.
Right. So what you gotta do is correct the mistake of the past. Always remember what I gotta make Indians understand this. So a piece of paper is there, right? In order to put this piece of paper to sleep, you gotta put another piece of paper on it to put it to sleep. Anything else?
The jurisdiction that creates that kind of non-remedy for a person itself is invalidated by doing that.
Oh, no.
Why not?
Because these nations are using it. Called the Clean Street Act.
What is it?
Called the Clean Street Act.
Clean street.
That means that the court is supposed to do everything under its power to clean the street and get rid of the undesirables by whatever means.
Now, that's an act under what jurisdiction?
Well, let me put it this way. I was sent to prison for 20 years without any remedy. Same thing right there. You got that? But then I turned around and found out they are protected by a certain set of laws. I don't know them in Canada. I only know them in the United States.
So there, just to open up the whole thing and go back to everyone, as long as they're not guilty.
Well, we know that the existing judicial system in Canada and the false powers that be that run it are nothing more than lackeys to the American state.
Right. But see, let me tell you something about the white man, and you can count on this. Whatever law he goes by, he follows it to the letter. He doesn't dare violate, otherwise his own legal system around the world would collapse. Now, I've gone for years trying to make the white man collapse it. But I've had federal judges in the middle of a case run out of the courtroom you understand, and be gone and never come back again. By not, so he wouldn't be responsible for causing the collapse of his corporate jurisdictum.
Yeah. This
Patty, you say, Phoenix?
See, this particular lawyer, working beyond the treaty frontier for us in the past, has affidavits of 2 Supreme Court judges in the province of British Columbia in Canada. After he served them notice about jurisdiction, gave them his research, met with them months later, both of them said, it's true, Mr. Clark, that if in fact the rule of law were applied, the Indian people have jurisdiction over us.
That's right.
But Mr. Clark, we would lose our jobs.
That's right.
They're more concerned about their position. And of course, the system might collapse if in fact the rule of law were applied.
So we don't have the rule of law then, what do they have?
Oh, yes, you do.
No, they don't.
One rule of law overrides another rule. Remember I told you, I have been in situations and circumstances where, I mean, you know, you name it. The 57 Magnum, you name it, the M60, you name it. Faced right at me, right? But I had the particular legal incident where custom and usage overruled the United States Constitution.
Custom and usage.
That's right. And they had to back up. I had big tanks in front of me, you know, that big gun that they sit there, you know, you wouldn't even find me. But I even found soldiers in the field know the law. You know, this one thing Indians got to learn to understand. That white man knows his law. Don't you ever kid, don't you ever think he doesn't. But, tell me your Bulgarian friend this. 2 Supreme Justices could say this for the simple reason that they have you in a legal predicament that they can say that. Have you ever been in an incident where you could arrest a judge?
As much as subpoena the judge, but
I arrested a judge. I arrested a judge off his bench. Have you ever heard of the Tacoma, Washington, what they call the 57, Tacoma 57?
I heard of it.
There were 57 Indians that were fishing salmon in the Pasquale, what is it, the river in Tacoma?
yellow,
Huh?
yellow.
Okay. And they arrested him. Charged him with all kinds of crimes. These guys were going to be gone 15, 20 years.
I remember, that was Hank Adams.
That's right. So they called me up to do it, you know, and so I said, well, shit. You know what I mean? These guys got autonomy governments. They give allegiance to these state governments that they call Indian governments. Shit, I'm whipped. And I remember I seen some of the films on it. It looked like a war zone. Have you ever seen some of those films? Jesus. So the only thing I looked at, I did a title search on the city of Tacoma. Of course, I got a clue from the judge's daughter because I was shacking up with her. So I went and did a title search in the city of Tacoma, and I found that the deed for Tacoma was not a legal document. It had not been signed over by any group of Indians. It had never been terminated by an act of Congress. I went to the court and I told him that, and I showed him the documentation, and I said, I arrest you for terrorizing, oppressing Indians. And he came right up. Oh, come here, come.
He stepped down off the bench.
Yeah, he knew. The white man knows his law. Don't kid yourself. He knows it backwards and forwards, in and out. Don't ever underestimate him.
Did you prosecute him after the arrest?
Huh?
Did you prosecute him after the arrest?
No, they were gone. They went free. Just went out the door. And they could fish from this river right running through Tacoma. They were my younger days. I was kind of crazy yet.
Well, that was where that, I think I asked you where that Bob Sataikum came out of too, out of that.
What?
The guy by the name of Bob Sataikum, after that Tacoma, Washington fight on fish, he got into tobacco and
Yeah.
women, huh?
Yeah.
And then he got charged with murder and fled to Canada and he died in Canada.
Yeah.
It was next year.
Shuswap country.
Yeah, Bob Sataikum.
Right.
But he was one of those guys, 57, as far as I know.
They were tough guys.
We used to go down to their camp once in a while. Don't?
Can you always imagine a guy, of course I used to always wear a cane and be walking down. Here's these tough Indians, man, they'd be holding their gun like, should I shoot them or look at them, you know? I've been around it most of my life, you know, I mean, you get used to it after a while. But, you know, to them as far as beating the white man in his own laws, they just couldn't believe it could be done. As far as they were concerned, they were ready to die right there at that.
Meredith on his part here was just put, the defendant filed a motion for Indian sovereignty, but defendant is a member of autonomous type Indian government.
Bank council.
Bank council. Remember that?
Huh?
That's where they got us.
Yeah, that's where you're a
I'm a
member.
prisoner of war.
That's right, that's why you can't. You'd be foolish to file sovereignty because only as, you know what? You cannot file a sovereignty claim of a nation you're not a member of. It's a very violent crime that can put you in prison for life. Remember that. There's the other part of it. You've got to know what you're doing.
You have a right to do
There's consequences to it if you don't do it right. Remember I told you at the
that.
beginning?
You have a right to do that, that's what he's saying.
Right.
The circumstance you're in now is you have no remedy. They've got you hamstrung.
That's right.
That's what he's saying. And by having a hamstrung, they brought in these people who have immunity. It's called torture, isn't it?
Well, I like the white man's law. If I were ever to use tribal custom and usual to take back a territory, I would like to use the white man's law, what they call the law of the primitive. And that's where I get to school all the women that I'm sorry, that's law. I'm sorry, that's law.
That's what the Oneidas were saying, is that when did we get to this rape and pillage?
But it is the law. They used it on us.
Or what?
Huh? The law of the primitive. The white man is a primitive. And the fact that person means imitator.
Primitive.
We have to stay
So if he's
with
an
it.
imitator, he's a phony, isn't he? It's a primitive.
Oh. No wonder they say that you're right.
He's a
Poor
monkey.
bears are
He's a monkey, they are. I believe they are.
But that's what person means. I wrote a book on what a person is. You guys saw it.
How can I get a copy of that book?
Huh?
How can I get a copy of your book?
Well, I don't know, you know, I can't give away copies, like, you know, I give away one, maybe even a couple more like that, but I can't do it because I violate my own copyright law.
Maybe you should think about reprinting it.
Yeah, true, I've been thinking about reprinting it. But shit, man, that takes
It's an
money.
idea. Reprint it and then have it for
What?
sale. Reprint it and have it for sale.
Well, I knew it would sell a lot because, think of it, it was 10,000 copies and it's sold out in 30 days. I thought it was pretty good.
Dude, right there, that's it.
Huh?
We'll be more about this one there.
Yeah.
What's the book called again? I forget.
My relations have 800 million.
I knew what you said.
The book, what is the title of it?
It's called Dakota Proclamation.
By Meredith Quinn, is that?
Yeah. And I remember what I
So
told.
Ozzy has one of those. You sent Ozzy stuff.
Yeah, I sent one of them, you know, and it took me a long time to send it. But I couldn't even get a good Xerox machine to do it right.
Do you own the copyright?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I own it all right.
How much money do you need to read?
What?
How much money would you need again to be on?
Well, I would see, you know, like, I would have to find a publisher that could give me a good deal. Like, that book cost me a little over $2 a copy to have made. I sold it for $5, so I made a couple of bucks out of it. I don't know what the price was today, but it wasn't done with what they call offset printing. And that's where you got all the used. This was done by when you take a picture of the page and it goes on an aluminum sheet and that's how it was done. That's why it was done so cheap. because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of words, typing, you know, there are images, what they call it, in there.
1,000 copies, that's $20,000.
40,000. You estimate some money on top of it.
Well, just the initial printing itself,
Yeah.
But
But it's American.
$24.95.
see, if you read it, it gives you a pretty good idea of all the things that you have to watch out for, of all the ways they come at you. And it gives you all the, very interesting, this one book tells you that a licensed attorney must protect the interests of the United States when he represents an Indian.
Yeah, it's sworn oath.
That's right, so it must be the same as Canada, all civilized.
Yeah, very much the same. That's why he's got to dispose of his lawyer.
Bulgarian attorney, because I would like to know, according to the TDM file of the International Court of Law, what is the responsibility of all these white nations that are supposed to take care of the Indian? And I can tell you what they're supposed to do, because I know the conditions of the article.
That was the one that was found in 1490,
What?
1490, well, after 1493, a year after discovery, right?
Right. That's when the Vatican surrendered their power as a world or a United Nations and turned it over to the International Court in The Hague. Because in the olden days, the Vatican was the international court for all the tribes of the world. Like, see, I'm working on the end time. What do we have to do in the end time? What comes with it.
The Coptic Bible was the one that was in Constantinople, right? The Greek Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
And then the Romans usurped it or took it over and became the Roman Empire.
Well, the Roman Empire lost their power in 408 AD. And they were, you gotta remember, the tribes of the world ruled the world for 700 years. You don't find that in the history books, do you?
From that time till...
Yeah. Till they bought it back. They bought it back in 1491.
This was it, 1499. So from the 409
The Vatican brought
the
it back.
14 for $17 million. This one, the Queen of England, the King of England, became...
They became the descendants of the old Roman Empire. And the old Roman Empire were Greek royalty. And if you look up these descendants of England, you'll find that they're Greek royalty. They're not, what do you call it, Saxon or Norman or anything like that. Well, anything else?
I just wanted to throw this at you and get some feedback from you.
Okay, first of all, you gotta remember one thing. Do you have anything of those things that I've heard in my lifetime?
I can imagine.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The rule of law depends for its implementation upon the existence of an objective bench and bar to do the implementing. But since 1849-50, the bench and bar has been the very institution which usurped the Indians' previously established jurisdiction. Since the usurpation has been and continues to be criminal in the specific sense of fraudulent, treasonable, and complicitous in genocide, the preconditioning element to the rational operation of the rule of law, an objective implementation institution, has been absent.
Right.
How do you resolve within the existing court system, for example, his situation by trying to apply the rule of law?
The rule of law?
Should he skip that and just deal with
He has to deal with that because first of all, he's got a charge.
Yeah.
He has to eliminate the charge before he can do anything.
Okay, this is Bruce's said. Okay.
See, it's got to work that way because there is no other way.
Yeah.
When you have a charge on you, you got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of it, then you go after it.
All right. That's it. You got the document you need. And Bruce steps in, then it's jurisdiction.
Right. See, then you open
Right.
when you do jurisdiction, then you know why they have this Armenian has jurisdiction, doesn't it? See, this Armenian was given jurisdiction over the Indian that even the white people don't have over there.
The Armenian or Iranian?
Well, Armenian, well, whatever.
Is that because we never had any dealings with anyone but the Christian people?
No, because he's a member of a third world nation which has no clan mothers. The people in Canada have white clan mothers, and they would be violating tribal custom and usage.
So in Canada, you have...
All right, okay.
Got it. Got it?
Yep.
A third world nation is a nation that has no legitimate title holders.
So that's why Canada and the United States are always sending X number of dollars to a third world nation all the time.
That's right.
So Iran isn't considered a third world nation, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is. The women over there are a piece of shit. They don't even dare put on panties over there. They gotta have it ready at all times.
Okay. Okay, prior to the deposing of the Shah,
Right.
what status did they have
Well,
in the world community?
you remember when the United States was protecting this
Yeah.
one group here? Why? It's because they were still tribal people. So what did they have?
Customary.
Clan mothers. They're the true landlord. And by this treaty, the United States is forced as a civilized nation to do whatever is humanly possible to protect tribal custom and usage.
Third world countries don't have clan.
That's what I was trying to get at. Why did they send all that money to them all the time? Is that so that eventually they're going to take over that area?
Which, you mean
Like the United States? Or,
Iran?
no, like if there's a third world country, you always say, well, Canada, they're sending millions of dollars over there. Or, it's not to help them, that's for damn sure.
Oh, no. To get you ever hear what they call
Gain control.
institutionalizing people?
Yeah,
Well, Indians are the most institutionalized people I ever met in my life.
to help the Christianity.
You hand them a piece of bread, boy, they're going to be back tomorrow for another piece.
Smiling.
What they call institutionalizing. You said that these third world nations is because they now put a debt on a nation, don't they?
Yep.
And they usually give it to some jerk there that's in the government that won't even use it for the people, which is the doctrine of a democracy. You see, it's not a world of righteousness.
That's what I'm trying to get at. When they send that money there, they're not helping that country.
No.
They're trying to put them in debt to that nation.
That's right. It's a world of law.
Honor. That's not good.
Shit, if it was a world of righteousness, I'd put on one of those funny hats and my turnaround collar and go down the line. But it ain't that kind of a world.
So in order for us to assert jurisdiction, we've got to reestablish.
You got to make yourself sovereign. And what is the white man recognize as sovereignty?
The criteria is a land base, be in possession of.
No, you can use occupation
Occupation is the other.
and not
Yeah.
not own the right.
Yeah. That's what we're claiming is, we're not talking ownership, but we're occupying that territory and always have been, time immemorial.
You must have citizens, landholders.
But you're talking about an aboriginal right,
Yeah.
which is superseded to the doctrine of discovery. You got to take away the doctrine of discovery away from it.
Yeah, to assert sovereignty. Okay.
So was that,
We've got to, well, like you said, one over the other.
certiorari?
In order to assert your sovereignty, you've got to do away with the doctrine of discovery. That's what they're relying on now to assert their sovereignty.
That's right.
So
They're assuming. They're assuming.
they're assuming that they have jurisdiction.
I know the plates, the silverware, the dishes, the food, I even know their wedding songs. Now, this is special now. This is the White Clan Mother. I know it. I have it down in a manuscript I wrote, but I could never find anything that showed me what the outside looked like. I can tell you the tables, the chairs, the arrangements, everything. The songs, the chants, and how everybody sits. It took a lot of years to study, but I mean, I put it on a book. I got it somewhere. You know, I leave stuff all over the country. You know? But I know all that. It's just that I had never been able to find what the outside of one looks like, which would give me an idea of where they could exist in this country. And I know jurisdiction of the white men is such that one has to be placed ever so often, so many square miles, to keep that mind control over the people up. So, the only
Can you get a list of them?
Huh?
Can you get a list of them from the Bank of England?
Are you kidding? I can only give one territorial right, and the reason I got that is because clan mothers signed the document. You got that? The clan mothers that did it no longer are sovereignty. They already went the other side and got jobs from the nation.
So that's the elitism we witness today in our
What?
territories. The elitism that we witness today in our territories is actually elitism that is related directly to.
Okay, let me give you another one. I have met some international attorneys in my day. And being that they're white and everything like that, they have the jurisdiction to move about some places, right? So I said, give me a copy of the Te Deum filed with the International Court in Hague of February 18th, 1493, to tell me which country is responsible for meeting these treaty stipulations. And the only comment I got from one guy is that you're asking for me to look at something that'll be a death penalty. So it's a lot of the stuff that you would think, it's not out on the open. If it was on the open, we would have been defeated the problem a long time ago. It's in existence. We merely have to find where it's at.
So, in a tribunal, an international tribunal, should it transpire, is it wrong for us to insist that, in fact, the so-called governments in North America, being that of the United States and Canada, come under our jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm. You have a very good question that Canada has to ask you, that has to answer to you. And that is, before it become a subject to England, it had to have taken a vote to show that it did not favor becoming a state of the United States. That's one of the conditions that Canada exists under. Now, I have never found a piece of evidence that shows that Canada made such a vote. And that has to be before they can even become a subject or under the jurisdiction of England.
I think some of the provinces did, didn't they?
Big word?
Some of the provinces, didn't they vote not to become states?
No, they only voted on this new French government.
Newfoundland, or those ones up that way?
Yeah.
They only voted not to become a French government, isn't that so?
Yeah, I believe
Which took about 2-3 years ago, wasn't it, that happened?
Just last year.
Last year?
Yeah, it was
Well, you know, what I talk
Charles
about.
Conrad.
That they wanted the country to be French-speaking and...
No, I'm thinking of the time when they formed the colonies. When they
Well-
formed the colonies, I think there were a couple provinces that they asked to join them, and they refused.
But in
The
Canada,
13 colonies, yeah,
in the colonies here or over
Mhm.
there,
over here.
didn't want to become part of the United States?
Right.
That's,
Yeah, but,
the people referred to as Acadians.
no. Okay,
That would be the,
one thing I do know, you gotta remember, the Civil War of the United States wiped that out. You gotta remember, up to the Civil War, people in the United States were still members of a penal colony. Did you know that? And it was a Seneca, his name was Eli Parker, that they made him a general, right? So he wrote the Articles of the Treaty for the South to sign. And the South was the legal government. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been the second law of the land. It would still have been the first law of the land, which is the Queen's Law. See, you're under the first law. You're not under the second law.
okay, the status of Canada changed in 48. Up until that point, they were subjects to the Crown of England, everyone in Canada. So, and becoming citizens of Canada, at that point, our people should have challenged.
Right.
They did.
You
48.
still have, yeah, you still have the right to challenge it, because that one question must be answered. Of course, then it's ticklish too. I'm trying to tell these kids here, talking here, I created the first Confederacy citizens in this area since 1794. Got that? The first Confederacy citizen. On September 19, 1973. The 350 Indians that signed up with clans and grandmothers and headsmen and everything became the first Confederacy, Iroquois Confederacy citizens in 1794.
In this area.
Huh?
In this area. So to do that back home,
Huh?
to do that back to 6 nations, we just gotta put the 5 nations together, one representative of each nation.
Who created the 5 nations? Come on. People for the state of New York versus Booth, 1981. Who created the 5 nations?
George Washington.
Yeah. So what is it? And what was it to do? It was to wipe out the jurisdiction of the Iroquois Confederacy. Remember, you said you wanted to do this right.
Mhm.
I know it hurts.
So what they call the Six Nations Iroquois Confederacy is not a legal.
It's only the 6 nations because George Washington created that too. He created the 7 nations. Then he signed all three treaties with all 3 of them.
But the only valid, for us, is the only valid body is the Iroquois Confederacy.
That's right.
Which we have the right to recreate it,
That's right.
because nobody else can take that right away from us.
That's right. The reason I know this is because I was the Iroquois Confederacy legal advisor for 10 years. And I had to know these things if I was going to teach these guys how to go the right way.
What's your understanding of the nature of a confederacy
Well,
in abstractly or versus a nation?
I'm talking about the original Iroquois Confederacy was 52 nations strong.
There's 52 states.
So when the Cherokees created an autonomy government, signed a treaty with the United States, that automatically took them out of the protection of the Iroquois Confederacy. When the Choctaws did the same, it took them out. When the Crees did the same, the Creeks did it, that took them out. When the Seminoles did the same thing, that took them out of the protection. That's how vast the Iroquois Confederacy was. That's a lot of power. Now the reason this New York State has so much power is because George Washington created a territorial dispute that couldn't be challenged. That is the same as the Mohawk land in Canada is the same as the United States. There is no separation. The same with the Cayugas, you know, the whole thing. And that was to wipe out the boundary line between Canada and the United States, which was created by the Iroquois Confederacy. And it was only for the white people. Those that believed in a monarch, they went on that side. Those that didn't believe in a monarch, they stayed on this side. Even in a Treaty of Mahattawa or Manhattan, Central Park is a separation between royalty on the east and the peasants on the west. When they tried to create the Mason-Dixon line, you understand? The Iroquois Confederacy stopped it. Because here's the white men. Now what they did here, let's make one down here. You understand?
So that's why you said the last time I was here that when we stand with the Confederacy, the legal Confederacy, guys, we brought up again. We write the letter to Ottawa, we write the letter to Great Britain. Europe, as they know, the Iroquois Confederacy.
And you write to the United States here. Because it's both of them, right?
Mm-hmm. So the whole continent will start shaking.
Right. You see, when I tried to get the Six Nations, what is Nedro? What is Nedro? Onondaga. What are they? Six Nations? Yeah, Six Nations, right. When I tried to teach them things and show them how to come under the protection, they wouldn't have anything to do with it.
Okay, Meredith, the Confederacy as it is up in Six Nations right now, where the chiefs are supposed to be meeting, that's not legal. Since when?
Since 1794. That's a long time, isn't it?
What happened in 1794? The Treaty of Canandaigua?
Indians created new nations
1794.
under George Washington.
So it went from the Confederacy being 52 nations, he dwindled it down to...
Just down to 5 or 6, 7, or whatever.
That was the Treaty of Canandaigua.
Might have been, I don't know, he got so damn many treaties. I just read the 5 nations and the 6 nations, and I said, that George Washington was one smart dude. You know, he was no fool.
That's why you called him the Great White Father. Some people did.
And yet he was did you know he was a fruit? He liked little boys?
Tell by the way he dressed.
Well, that's the way they dressed. The Indian was the first one to give men pockets. Otherwise they had their little purse on there. No. Did you know that? We gave them pockets, pants, you know? Man, can you imagine running around with silk stockings and that big shoe with a buckle on it?
So the government, the so-called government of Canada, the so-called government of the United States, they know since 1794.
Sure they do.
Legally, there has been no Confederacy, but they also know that the people, like the signatory savages that are there, which are the kids, we can create that Confederacy.
That's right.
Back again. Just like that.
It can be done.
It has to be.
I've seen it done. You know, here it is. That's why I'm retired, because I already know it works. But then getting, you know how long I had to train these people to step forward and teach them about sovereignty? It took me 6 months out of a garage 3 or 4 nights a week to teach Indians what sovereignty. Indians use the word sovereignty so, what do you call it? Like it's a common word, but not one of them understand what it means. None of them know what it really means legally. You know? And it takes a lot. Now I hear them spouting it out, but then that's my teaching 20-some years ago. But they still can't. Like one guy was going to come over and beat me up one day, and I said, hey, I says, when you can go out there and shoot at that state trooper and he has to run, then you got enough guts and nerve to fight with me, because that's what I've already done in my lifetime. What have you done?
Being on this tape, can you define sovereignty?
Huh?
Can you define sovereignty for this video?
Well, sovereignty, if you understand it, identifies a nation. And if there is a nation, then it has citizens of this nation. Now, tribal citizenship is a lot different than citizenship of the person or the white man. There's a big difference. In fact, if you looked at the law, there's no way in hell an Indian could be a citizen of a white nation. But then if we go back to that treaty that I told you about, no white nation would dare write a treaty to make an Indian a citizen. And I find that governments are very funny. That's the first thing you got to understand. Sovereignty is a nation with its territorial boundaries that has citizenship or citizens. And what makes a citizen of a tribal nation? Clan mothers were the territorial holders of the right, and they have membership. And they select a chief to speak for them, because for them to speak would be too low a thing to do. They let the peasant do it, which is the chief.
We did that reverse for that.
You know?
That's what we call the chiefs in our language. They serve the people.
That's right. You serve the people. Yet this area here is the first time, or the one time, I don't know, was it 1940? 47, maybe 50, where the clan mothers clubbed to death a chief in front of the white people. And they had to show just where the authority lay.
Well, this window.
We got a candidate.
But, you know, that's the thing. You got to know what is a sovereignty. As it is now, a bunch of Indians together, they consider that a sovereignty. That's a community, right? It's an ethnic community. And Nancy's got a whole bunch of ethnic communities. They got black, yellow, pink, purple, brown, whatever else there is. All is an ethnic community, but it still belongs to the United States. Over 90% of the Indians in this country will consider themselves a citizen of the state they live in and the United States. Now, there's a Supreme Court case that says that where you give your allegiance, we either keep or forfeit your sovereignty. It's called Elk versus Wilkins. The white man really likes to use that on Indians. Elk versus Wilkins. E-L-K versus Wilkins. W-I-L-K-I-N-S. K-I-N-S.
And this what? What does it do?
Huh?
They challenge you.
The white man all has to ask you and say, where do you live? You say, in the United States. That wipes out your sovereignty right there.
So you have to, like, when you go across and you just say 6 nations, you're supposed to say North American, and they shut up.
When I crossed the border, they asked me where I'm born. I'm from the Dakota Empire.
You just keep us in here from now on to the...
Oh, I see. They say, what race are you? And I said, I'm an American Indian. And I kind of remind them, I'm not a Native American.
Okay, what should we be stating? We're gonna start from, start the Confederacy. When we cross the so-called border, what we should be...
I wouldn't say anything until you do that documentation. You have to do the documentation first.
So that means we gotta set the plans up, we gotta have a plan membership.
Notify that.
Right, you gotta do all this. But let me tell you something, 25 years has taught me not to do it. Do you know why?
You should have seen Ryan this
Because
No, sorry.
all the ones in your reserve that don't do it will become your enemy.
What else they do?
And the white man will take his finger and stick it right up that Indian's ass to make him do it. That's why I don't recommend it. And I says, in your particular case, I said, it's nothing to create and get you sovereign, but you're only going to last 6 months. Then they're going to overwhelm you through the religion. And that is Wovoka, Black Elk, and Handsome Lake. They're going to So that's why I said, before I start anything, I should teach you what the original religion is. Remember my, I said, this is your original religion? That you won't know it, won't understand it, because it's been substituted. Just like when we got this place and saved it from termination, the government over there hired all the people from the Longhouse, right? That wiped that one right out, didn't it? They used religion. And yet they were the ones that fought us. You understand? But the white man says, we'll use the Longhouse because that's supposed to be the place of authority. What are you, a sweat lodge, huh? You're like the Sioux. You must belong to the Sioux.
Well, that's who gave us, we bought those, way back, we bought those lodges from the Sioux. That's when it's good.
Man, you know when I was a boy, we would sit in a lodge, in the sweat lodge. We big ones, the old community, the men and women in there, no clothes on. You know, and if somebody got a hard one, they knew they weren't supposed to be there, right? But we were taught spiritually. Now you got sweat lodges for women and sweat lodges for men. That's the same thing the white Christian does. You know, where the heck is your spiritual power? You know, you can't even overcome a little thought in your mind, man, you're pretty weak. You can't overcome it.
A little thought in your mind, a little thought in your head.
No, but that's it.
Yeah.
Imagine how low that has gone already, right, since I was a kid.
This is very,
I
I can bear witness to that, being to the Amazon basin in Brazil in 1986, where even though I speak my language, I go by our old ways, our
Right.
beliefs, spiritual beliefs. I got down to my shorts. Those people were without clothing, unashamed.
Right.
The only difference was if your penis hung down, you're indecent. But if you tied it up with a string, you're indecent. I felt like a white man among the nations there.
Well,
You know,
that's true too, right?
psychological.
Because you got to watch out for those women because they like to see the long hung penises. You know what I mean? You got to compensate for it. I mean, there's a logic for that. But no, this is the thing. Like, so when, well, I get lonely sometimes to see if I could see that again. When I was a kid, we went in the lodge and we prayed, we meditated, we played. You know, and then where I come from, everybody tried to steal all the children because it was a blessing to be able to fascinate and keep all children, right? It ain't that way anymore. I even work with one girl I got here. I don't know what to do with her, you know. But then she's got training that I can't break, that the white man put in there. I can't break it. That white man training is something else. You can't break it. You know, the thing is, 10:30, they're burning tobacco tonight, and I said, you get me pissed off, we'll burn it at 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to say a law somewhere, you know. Somebody's got to be in control, right? Not them, they're not old enough to be in control. Oh, I got your writ for you. You know, sometimes law is so simple that we sometimes take law and expand it out to where it really isn't. I want you to read it. You look at a computer thing, monitor, it's on the left-hand side. And sometimes, you know, law is simple. But we like to make it complicated. Did you know that when you read the court case, the freedman versus slavery, it tells you that the Indians were the ones that owned these big plantations in the South. There was no white man. Go ahead and read it out loud. I want to just show you how simple law is.
Defendant's memorandum of law. The defendant who has looked for remedies for redress in his convictions or charges has found none. It has been recommended that the defendant file a motion for Indian sovereignty. The defendant is a member of autonomy-type Indian government, which disqualifies him from doing so. Nor does he have a legal-type representative to do so. It has been recommended that the defendant file a motion of entrapment, which the defendant understands to mean to catch as in a trap, to trick into danger or difficulty, deceive, and snare. The defendant, dealing with an Iranian nationalist, one who only has to look at over 10 years of experience with Iranian deals with Indians in the United States. It is known by Indians. Iranians have a grant of immunity from prosecution on any crimes they commit. Iranians, according to court history,
I got the court case.
C 4-81-0498 ALBR cannot be sued by an Indian for any injuries, loss of property, or even death in a court of law.
What's that?
Or even death in a court of law.
That's right. You can't get at him. You have no recourse.
No recourse.
Had the defendant not met the demands of the Iranian.
So the church doctrine of not eating any meat on Friday, it was put in there to make sure that the people through generations would stop eating human steak or stop practicing cannibalism. So you're talking about the people that were attacked, that were cannibals, that's what they were.
So cannibalism was going on before Columbus.
Well, yeah,
Columbus,
Columbus, it took 10 years to kill all the Indians in the Caribbean.
Because they say that's when cannibalism first.
No, that's where it started. That's all. It took 10 years to kill every Indian in the Caribbean. Did you know there are no Indians in the Caribbean? It took 10 years because it was used as a food supply going back and forth across the Atlantic. And that's recorded documentation on this man. It took 10 years to wipe out every Indian in the Caribbean. And there are no Indians in the Caribbean. What else? Where we're at, anyways. Where was our original subject?
Okay, the point you made, I'm interested in, where the lawyer we've chosen, is a renegade.
No. There would only be one way he could be a renegade. Well, he's a renegade for renegade people, and that is the average person on the street or in a community. It's an old French term. Now, I wrote a book in 1972 that the allegiance of attorneys and where it has to lie. It sold out in 1 month because everybody wanted a Jesus. Here was an Indian who wrote a book and actually showing where jurisdiction and how jurisdiction worked. But every licensed attorney, the reason I was able to save this reservation right after Wounded Knee is because I threw all the attorneys out. I built clan mothers, headsmen, and chiefs, took their names off the registration of the Seneca Nation Indian, sent it to the Bureau of Indian Affairs in Washington, D.C., showing that they were signatory Indians and not prisoner of war Indians. So the act of Congress that passed to terminate them didn't apply to them. Of course, the government's real smart. They got around that now, so the 25 years are up again, so they can now, the government can now use it again. Because the congressional acts have passed. Nobody has repealed them just because the Indians defeated them. That didn't repeal it. A law is a law till it's removed. I don't care how old it is. Funny thing about law, it never grows whiskers. It's as fresh and as great as the day that it was passed, which you've got to learn to understand. So I'm not downing your attorney, you understand? But I'm an international legal advisor. I'm registered with the United Nations. Do you understand? I deal in international law, so I know what works and what doesn't because I've tried it here in this country for 20 years. And it worked. The only thing I feel sorry about is the Indians didn't pass it on. See, like, you're telling me things that I learned about over 20 years ago. So in other words, the reason you're being practiced on is because right now there's a certain date that comes up that the white man's got to get rid of all Indians. Did you know that there's only 35 square miles in the United States that is legal United States territory? "18 square miles is in the state of Minnesota, and 17 square miles is in the state of Washington. All the rest of it does not belong to the United States. It assumes jurisdiction because the Indian doesn't know who he is. So they have to watch over this poor imbecile.
So, in essence, what you're saying is that, let's take, for example, the Privy Council of Great Britain. They, in fact, are the Romans.
Right?
Recently, a group of Indian people, in particular, the Western Shoshone in Nevada, Utah, California, and Idaho, the Tamagamis and Chippewas of Ontario, the Lillooets and Shuswap, Okanagan of BC, Plains Cree of Saskatchewan, and the Innu of Quebec attended at I believe that's referred to as a non-native court, but representing the Crown, and they pressured the Crown into honoring existing treaties, being that these treaties made had to go outside the country of Canada and the United States. An example of one of the matters that was brought up in 1773, where the so-called Mohican Indians and Connecticut went head-to-head. The Mohicans took it to the Privy Council in Great Britain and literally defeated and won jurisdiction. the jurisdiction referred to as territory and all laws, customary law pertaining to their cultural ways. Do you consider that to be a valid?
I do. I very do. You know why? Because when it was one jurisdiction, then it told me who were representing the people, what they were like, and the claims and the rights that they had according to international law. Now that's what you got to look at. I don't look at it like you do, where you say, well, a bunch of people just went there. No, there had to be a certain type of Indian with certain duties, tribal duties, that had the power to do this. Now, in 1975, I had a problem that dealt with cession jurisdiction, and cession is territorial right. Since, 1890, or somewhere way back in the 1800s, these people signed a treaty or an agreement with the United States to create 5 congressional villages here. Now, if there were congressional villages, that tells you that the state of New York was not in the United States, is it? All right, so I came along and said, the Indians that signed that agreement with the United States were not signatory Indians. Therefore, Caucaso Mesas had no jurisdiction. In other words, I'm saying that the white clan mother, and all across this country, there's areas where the white clan mother has jurisdiction, cession title, territorial title. So I had to find out where she was, because I had to tell her that she didn't have jurisdiction over Salamanca, New York. So I wrote to Ogden Land Company. No, Holland Land Company first. And they told me that they were a division, a parent company of Ogden Land Company. So I wrote to Ogden Land Company. They said, we're a division. And the parent company is the state of New York. So I wrote to the governor of New York. The governor of New York replied and said, we're a division of a parent company called the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I wrote the governor to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They wrote back and said, well, we're a division with a parent company of the Bank of England. So I wrote to the Bank of England, you understand? And they in turn sent me a letter back giving me the name of a white clan mother who was married to a senator at the time. So I wrote her letter and told her, because of this incident here, she didn't have cession title over Salamanca, New York. So I know it works. In other words, let me put it this way. Hey, I've had 25, 30 years of this. I found out, see, at the very beginning, I was just like everybody else. I was stupid. I mean, the FBI would catch me, beat the shit out of me, throw me down cliffs, you name it. Jab metal through my body. See? So I know that you can say the wrong thing and it'll kill you. So that thing, when you say that, I knew there were clan mothers, separated by clans with membership, representing a headman to speak on behalf of it. Then I knew that England had to honor it. If you did the same thing right now in your place, the Queen of England would have to honor it. The United States would have to honor it. France would have to honor it. It's not, the law hasn't changed, Elaine. The law don't change. The only thing that changes is people don't understand who they are.
Using the law of nations today, if Bulgaria should enter into trade and commerce with us, which they are prepared to do.
Wait, are we talking about the country Bulgaria?
The country Bulgaria.
Good. Oh, this is great.
It's
You know why I like Bulgaria? Because I used to always say, geez, if Russia took us over, we'd be better off than we are now. You know why? Because the communists were a lot better to their aboriginals over there than the United States ever was.
See, now, Bulgaria, since the USSR is non-existent, are a chartered member of the UN. They're now prepared, and they do have even a building for international trade tribunals.
That's great.
They want to trade with us. They have no economy right now. They're establishing a new, fresh economy. They want to trade directly with us. And the lawyer who I spoke of is living in Bulgaria. He worked beyond the treaty frontier, British Columbia, where there are no treaties, and with us, where there's no treaty. He found that even though the judges, the Supreme Court judges of the provinces that we serve notice to by jurisdiction, agreed with him in his findings and his research, but he said, either you honor the rule of law or you're a criminal.
That's right.
And we've been saying the same thing.
That's right. He's absolutely correct. And I will tell you one thing now. If you set up your clan mothers, your clan membership, your headsmen, and your chiefs, you would protect that man from Bulgaria. All right. You understand? Now, let's put down your law here. I will tell you this. But if you arrange your system under the common law of the white man, you understand? Mm-hmm. You are not Indian.
Oh, that's something we've accepted some time ago.
All right, you got that? Mm-hmm. I would like to speak to this man from Bulgaria.
We spoke to him last night.
Huh?
We spoke to him last night.
Because if he's from the country of Bulgaria, now first of all you got to remember one thing. In 1973, when I took the chiefs to the United Nations, I had the approval. There's 7 nations that rule the world, right? The only one that didn't approve of me before the General Council was the United States. But I had all 6 others. So I was going to bring up this issue of why we should be kept in a prisoner of war state and not at least a third world nation, because look how many nations. There's 144 nations now. They're third world nations, right? But you want to know what happened? This is what I'm telling you that you got to watch out for. So in order to speak before the General Council, I have to carry credentials, don't I? So I was up at the International Law Department receiving my credentials. And while I'm up there, guess what happens? Somebody rushes my chiefs through the civil rights, civil rights, which use up their one time to present their issue. I'm still up there yet, I haven't come down yet. So I'm trying to warn you that whatever you do, some of your own people are going to sell you out. You've got to be very careful about it. Now, haven't I told you that? And what do they say, the one thing they can't beat you at? Religion. Now, what's the 3 religions that the United States Army thought up and gave to the Indians? Come on, what are they? Yeah. And?
Wovoka.
Huh?
Wovoka.
Yep.
Ghost dance.
And Black Elk.
Black elk.
That's right. Guess who thought up these religions? The United States Army. Part of congressional records. So guess what religion I come from? I come from the old one. The old one that Congress said is hostile to all other Indians.
So is ours.
No, I know that. I know the original religion that we're supposed to have. Okay, let me give you an example. I like to do this. The Mohawks really chop them up.
Not Mohawk.
There's a court case called People for the State of New York versus Boots. You ever hear of it? 1981. And this judge says, you can't go to church on Sunday and be an Indian on Monday. And he's absolutely right. Because if you study the Christian Bible, there's actually laws that tell you when you're supposed to hold the Sabbath. It's not every 7 days. Holding church on Sunday isn't even Christian. So that judge knows more about the Christian religion than the Christians do. And actually, I find him a friend. Because the oldest known Christian Bible in existence is an Indian Bible. Did you know that? That sits in the British Museum. And it is 2,000 years older than the Septuagint. And all the rest of these Bibles were translated from the Septuagint. So, here we are. How many Christians do we have in the United States? They're not even honoring their own Christian faith by holding the Sabbath on the correct day. They're actually giving honor and their spiritual strength to the goddess of Isis. So they're pagans. I remember when I was a kid going to school, they called me a pagan, a devil worshiper, and everything like that. Here today I can prove that they're the pagan, the devil worshiper. Takes a long time to get even, but you know, I love it. But I used to get beaten up for believing in the Creator and the Great Spirit. You get back out there. You're not welcome here.
So present-day Christians,
right,
are in fact
are what?
pagan. Are in fact pagans.
They're pagan because they hold their rituals on Sunday, which belongs to the old Isis and Osiris religion of sacrifice. So the judge was right, wasn't he? He was actually trying to straighten these Indians out.
Well, they can't be Indians if they follow the Christian religion.
Huh?
They can't be Indians if they follow the Christian religion.
Right.
Or the pagan religion.
The pagan religion.
So so actually when you're doing that and going to church every Sunday, you're a pagan. That was a pretty smart judge. He wasn't no stupid one.
Under Christianity, what is the proper day?
Huh? Okay, I can give you, if we had time to learn, I would teach you that. It's in the Bible. It tells you exactly when to hold it. But we must start the first time the Sabbath was held, which was at high noon on a particular day. Then it shows you how to count the days by days and hours, and the next time you're supposed to hold it. You're supposed to have 3 different churches. These 3 different churches are perpetual, that you hold them in each one in a given time. And it's perpetual. It isn't the same building, because Indians wouldn't do anything on it. What Indian would do something in the same building always? Don't we travel in the summertime? Don't we have our summer home, our winter home, our spring home? That's what we would hold our churches, the same method, wouldn't we? Isn't that just common knowledge?
We still do it.
Yeah, some places we still do it too here. But, you know, this is the thing. So the judge knew more about Christianity than what's the name of this one? This evangelist on TV all the time?
Graham?
Graham, yeah. He knew more about Christian religion than Billy Graham knew. But then, you know, this is, you know, what we're looking at. But there is a time, and there's a way to determine. Like, you know what I'm working on right now? He gave me a computer, and I wanted to do it. See, the Indians, through legend, tell us what the world was like before the last ice age. There were different days in a year. There were different ideas. There were different lifestyle. Everything was different than the one today. So we're coming up to the zone where we're going to go back. The Earth's going to flip over again, and we're going to go back to this other world. And I'm saying we've kept all the things we were supposed to keep spiritually through this long journey. Right? Because I've been looking up the white man stuff, and he even knows that time continuum reverses itself. Can you understand when I say time continuum? It reverses itself. Immortality reverses itself. So where's heaven? And where is heaven going to be after the next ice age? Man, if they're expecting to go to heaven, where is heaven going to be then? I mean, boy, are they in trouble. So I'm doing it right now is because I found that there's a lot of sciences that the Indian has that the white man will not permit its people to know. I got some people coming that are making a movie and they want to now see, well, Jesus, we better look at this thing here because we're coming to the end time. A lot of white people know it's the end time, pretty close. They know, and then I keep saying, Indians are supposed to lead them? Boy, see some of the Indians I know, boy, they would lead? Man, you talk about a pitfall. You know, and these people are looking for the Indians to pull them out of it. Man, we are in trouble. Because we're not even teaching the things that we're supposed to know that pass on to them if they want to survive with us. You go back out that foyer. These girl dogs have made him horny. He's pissing all over the house.
I have to go back a little. You mentioned Woboka. We're familiar with that.
Huh?
You mentioned Woboka, one of the falsified beliefs. We were familiar with that. Handsome Lake came to light when I met with
I'm trying to show them the day the U.S. Army turned it over to the New York State Education Department to print it.
Now, Black Elk.
Right.
How did that become a religion?
Because the United States Army used him as a protocol observer. It's right in the book. It tells you he's a protocol observer for the United States for the slaughter of Wounded Knee. And all Wounded Knee was over religion. He was a very young man, but he was a protocol observer. You got that? Okay. Upon the slaughter of Wounded Knee, he would be made the new high priest by the United States government. So all these years growing up as a little boy, everything like that, I suffered the isolationism of not belonging to one of these three religions.
You're so unfortunate.
Huh?
You're so unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm so unfortunate. I'm still unfortunate. Because geez, I'm dealing with guys with Handsome Lake. Oh boy, they think that's the absolute God there is. You know what I mean? I said, I got to remember this General Terry because he was a pretty good man because he's the one that forced it on me. He didn't even know that. General Terry, he's not exactly a fool, you know.
How does the white society keep track of their clan mothers? Where are they
Well,
designated or delegated?
okay, let me tell you something. And I'll know something. I have belonged to a lot of white clubs that used to talk about the elite that rule the world. And I said, hell, I see their footprints on the reservation every day of the year. I said, because they go by a certain law on the reservation. Hey, come on, you guys see it on your reservation. You know these little things going against your people and everything. It's a little special clique that moves this one, moves that one, this one here to keep you down. That's what I call the footprints of that elite. The clan mothers, whatever you want to call them. I said, I find their footprints on every reservation in the country. Naturally, it would be natural because it's the one place that's challenging their authority. And we used to all talk about it, discuss it, because they are an elite people. I dealt with one only through mail, but then the guy that I want to get it back from so I can find out, see if I could follow her in the course of 6 months, I would find out where they go, right? Because they do go someplace. Now, somewhere's in my writings, you know, I do a lot of writing. I know what the inside of their temple looks like. I've been through archives in my lifetime, and I could never find it. Until one day I found it, and I occupied a mission, and I discovered the treaty. In other words, before the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo could be signed, the United States had to present a paper, which was a big book, to show that since the Mexican government was defeated, that none of these articles had been violated. Now, do you know why this treaty was signed with us? Because the white tribes in Europe had a lot of trouble with the Roman Empire. There was actually in those days, if you were a tribal person, you were a slave. And they had to do something with them. So they came over here and asked for our help. Whatever it is we showed them, they defeated and conquered the Roman Empire, and the Roman Empire signed a treaty. The Veracruz Empire was present at the signing of that treaty. Now, because whatever we showed them to defeat the Roman Empire, what we call the Arenas Empire, or the white tribes, signed a treaty with us, making us look like we defeated them, but there was no war. So when I wrote this Indian Manifesto on March 11, 1972, of the 8 articles in there, 3 of them were the articles from this treaty. So I know where it's at. And that's a treaty that covers you. It covers everybody in North and South America. And
Is it titled?
huh?
Is it titled?
Yeah, it's called, one group of people call it the Treaty of the Camel's Eye. And the white man calls it the Eye of Isis. And a copy of this treaty sits in Central Park today. And the archives of New Mexico and Colorado also carry a copy of this treaty.
IASIS?
What's that?
IASIS?
ISIS.
ISIS.
Now, the people in New Mexico, or the Pueblos, up to what, 88 or 89, one of those years, they were always permitted to look at this treaty that they have in the archives, that they always claimed that was in unknown language. Well, the people out there know medieval Latin and modern Latin, no secret to them. But they couldn't figure out what this language was. But I said, if you get a copy of it, or let me see it when they show it to them, I'll show you what the treaty says because I know the language that it's written in. and it's written in the Coptic language that Indians signed. So that shows you we go back a long way in history. But anyway, it was this same treaty. Okay, you got this now. So there was a lot of wars and internal affairs in Europe going on. But finally, in February 1491 AD, the descendants of the Roman Empire purchased their titles back from the white tribes of Europe for $17 million, or 5 million golden marbetas. I got documentation for that. Right. And the agreement was, in order for them to purchase their land titles, they would have to fulfill the conditions of this treaty. Now, the Romans no longer were in Italy. What did I just say? The Romans were no longer in Italy. So whoever the Romans were, they weren't Italian. But at the time before Rome signed the unconditional surrender, England was considered the second Rome. Right down your soup, you guys. Right down your alley. So, Rome, or the second Rome, received the responsibilities of fulfilling the treaty stipulations. So who are the King and Queen of England? And Romans are the royalty of Greece. Now, I just put that to you to show you, this is the treaty that you are covered by. Because of this treaty, no country can make a citizenship law that includes you, because you're already a world citizen. That's why when you read I even wrote a book about the 6th citizenship law of the Indian in this country, and not one of them makes a tribal Indian a citizen, and can't, because of this treaty. So they fulfill this treaty letter perfect always. And when you go out to New Mexico, you follow they follow most of this treaty letter perfect.
Where does the language derive from?
Coptic was the original Greek language.
Greek. Okay, Greek. So the Greek language is originated from Coptic dialect.
Right. The first Christian Bible was printed in Coptic, which was printed in 451 AD and distributed throughout the world. When the descendants of Mayflower landed on these shores in 1620, the reason the Indians kept him freezing to death that first winter is because they showed the Coptic Bible and some of the objects that you needed to be spiritual. I've already lectured to the descendants of Mayflower. They didn't think I knew. Thought I was another dumb Indian. All right, that's your treaty that covers everybody. That's the one we should be looking at. That's the one we should present to the world. And all this shit would stop. But you guys run to an attorney. And what is the jurisdiction of an attorney?
Whatever country is in.
What'd you say?
Well, it's an assumption of jurisdiction.
Huh?
It's an assumption of jurisdiction.
No, they have an exact jurisdiction.
They do?
Yes, they do.
What were their people?
Under what they call renegade law.
Somewhat of assumption of jurisdiction then.
They have an absolute jurisdiction.
They do?
Yes, they do, under the renegade law. And if you're not royalty, you're a renegade.
Okay.
I don't care if you're white, purple, pink, chartreuse. Now, if you're a citizen from another country, don't you usually go to your attorney of your nation? Then how come you got an attorney from another country, a foreign country?
There, I see. The options that we had were either we represent ourselves and get stopped at preliminary sessions in their courts, or we accept the one attorney that we found is the only one in Canada who will not accept an Indian land claim because his research indicates that we can't, there's no sense, it's idiotic, it's self-defeating to claim something that already is ours.
Okay. The only time that you can participate or even be a subject in or out of land claims is when you're classified as a prisoner of war.
So we are.
Right. In fact, in this country, 98% of the Indians are prisoners of war, and they don't even know it.
Yeah. Howard Adams comes from.
Well,
You're familiar with Dr. Howard Adams?
it was...
He says very much the same thing.
There's 3 laws that govern Indians that nobody can deny. It's called severalty, alienation, and guardianship. You've heard of these terms before? They are the 3 requirements that a civilized nation must abide by from the Hague Accord from 1888 through the Geneva Convention of 1949.
48.
Oh yeah, well they put it down at 49 every book I read of. Now, the reason you're a prisoner of war is because where I come from, I'm a Dakota. Of the 2% of Indians that didn't join this autonomy type of government, they isolated themselves, they fought with the United States and defeated them. Only the United States has never signed that treaty yet. They had to make these other Indians, these 98% of Dakota Indians, prisoners of war because they became the first third world nation. And if they were to relieve that prisoner of war concept, jurisdiction over them, the territory of Wyoming, Montana, Utah, Nebraska, South Dakota, parts of Minnesota, and Iowa would become a third world nation. Interesting? Now, I took the chief's Wounded Knee to New York City in 1973. And I'll tell you an event that happened that makes me wonder if Indians really do need help. And that is, I am legal advisor, where I deal only in international law. I do not deal in domestic law. That's what your attorney is.
No. He's dealing with international law.
You have to be an international legal advisor to do it, and you have to be registered with the United Nations to do it.
Well, he's going on the premise that Bulgaria being, free of USSR, they're now a charter member of the UN.
Because if he was a legal advisor, he would take your issue on commerce directly to the United Nations and not to a court. Because that court is domestic law for the renegade. I'm sorry. That's it.
You're classified as domestic.
You're a domestic subject of the area. Now what makes you a subject of the area? It's something your people did in the past that made you that way.
Subject of what area?
Whatever area you're in. Like this one here, we have the Seneca Nation of Indians, right? Owned by Governor Como. It's a political subdivision of the state of New York. But these Indians believe it's an Indian nation, an Indian government.
Nor am I that naive, but the laws that we abide by, and two areas where we live. Where we are, we're beyond the treaty frontier, meaning there are no treaties, no nation that we know of who are closely related to us ever surrendered the Rocky Mountains where we live. It was spoken.
That's right, and that's because the Dakota defeated the United States in that area. That's why when my grandmother, who was born in Canada, in exile, they could not, the United States could not sneak into Canada and sneak them back like they did in Ontario on my great-great-uncle that permitted the United States to go in there, capture him, put some opium in him to dope up to bring him back to try him without any evidence, and was hung under the orders of President Lincoln. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, for us, using English, we would refer to our way of government as using customary law.
Customary law. That's what they call customary law. But you got to remember one thing. The court case, January 17, 1975, called United States versus Consolidated Wounded Knee Cases.
Oh, okay, familiar.
The judge made a statement that 65 Sioux Indians couldn't figure out, and he says, we cannot bring the caucus omesis into a law or a treaty. In other words, he's saying, clan mothers are the law. They're above the law. And if you study international law, of the 6 laws that are treaties that make up all international law, 3 of them are Indian.
Okay.
So the foundation of all law that white man has to follow, 3 of them are tribal custom and usage.
Okay. So we're correct
So if
on
your
that.
tribal law has clan mothers and clan membership and heads of their chief, they can't touch you.
This is what we have to reestablish. We're in the process.
That's right.
We're in the process. Hopefully with a little help from our friends. Some of the 6 nations are married in with our people, Nihil. We have recently accepted wampum from them. So we have treaty with them.
But did you send it to the governments where you look like? What state are you in?
We're in the province of Alberta.
Well, why don't you send it to the premier of Alberta?
Premier, yeah.
You send him a copy of wampum belt. Then they should send one in the area they're at. Right? That puts your tie. That makes a legal tie. They can't shoot that down.
Well, this is where, first of all, our strategy is to use international law, existing international law, and that we are putting the onus on them to prove they have jurisdiction in our territory.
No, you can only invite.
Well, that's another term.
That's right. You can only invite because always remember one thing. In international law, we are not bound by a white man's boundary line.
No.
We are bound by a linguistic concept. You understand? We're not bound by a boundary line. We're bound by a linguistic concept. Because the Peruvian Indians speak my dialect. So that's how far my jurisdiction runs. Huh? Oh, a little cream, a little sugar.
Is
Okay,
it
you
that-
have? Okay, go ahead.
Is
Does
it
that
that-
help you?
Let's say premature for me to assume that we have a report from several linguists, two from Columbia University, one from Washington, D.C., one from Canada,
Right.
from the East,
Right.
McMaster,
Right.
who, along with one of our members of our lodge, the Rocky Mountain Cree people, have...
You're Cree? You're Cree?
Yeah, they're Nihil.
Cree.
Call ourselves
I went
Nihil.
to school with Crees.
Uh-huh.
You know where Wapton Indian School is, North Dakota?
I do.
That's where I went to school with them. And so, see, I remember those Crees used to come down to my reservation. That used to be the older days. Remember, we'd steal men from other reservations or women to keep our bloodline strong.
Yeah, we're...
Some
I'm a
pretty
mixed-
good looking Crees in it, boy. Let me tell you something, boy.
I'm a mixed blood. My grandfather was Cree and Asirepon. The white man's Cinnamon was the Asirepon. We call them. They were our allies.
Yeah,
That's how
we have what we call a washichuna. We have a washicho, then we say, right? Then we have the washichuna, which becomes an ally. See, the original white man that came here, way before Columbus ever came here, and was always here, was a washichuna.
We know of them in our history. We know of them.
That's right. I've even found the history for it.
Yeah, we know of them through our the keepers of our history.
Like my grandmother used to tell me that the people came up to Mississippi and they had helmets and they had buffalo horns on them because of an agreement that we had with the Norseman people. See? So they came up and they used to teach the treaties to our people way back when. That's how she knew all these treaty articles.
Okay, they called on one of our teachers. It was called Wisagachak. He was like our teacher. He was contrary, very wonderful, powerful. And they called on him to defeat. They were being attacked. This white nation was being attacked by a huge nation of cannibals.
Cannibal?
Well,
You're talking my language now. I can identify the cannibal for you. Because do you ever notice why the white man has fish on Friday? Now, remember that law I told you? What is the name of that doctrine? Payne's Doctrine. That's an agreement that the white men had to sign down and say that they would no longer ever kill an Indian, cut him up, make steaks out of him, have the Jewish rabbi bless it, and sell it in the meat market. Now, you know why the Payne Doctrine came about? See, scalping came from Europe. And so they used to scale, you know, like scalping Indians out here was big business. Even among the millionaires are prejudiced against one another because of two groups. The one that's called the old money are the families that made all their money off human steaks, scalps, and all that sort of thing. That's called old money. The new money, they do not associate with the old money. So even among them, they have their own prejudice. But anyways, scalping got so good, the white man thought he really had it, right? So he come out to where I was. And only we learned how to do it really good. I mean, we were good. We were so good that the civilized nations had to sit down with the Dakota Empire to say, we now have to determine that is a crime against humanity by scalping them. And we had to agree that we would no longer ever scalp the white man again. And that comes from the Payne's doctrine. Never mind what these colleges say, oh, scalping company is bullshit. We were just good at it. We took the one thing that the white man scared, and that is to go around clean shaven on the head. And I like to remind him of that. Okay, so cannibalism. So cannibalism was part of the white race. Now there's a difference between the white tribes and the white race. Like it's the same identity when we say Washichana, we know that's a member of the white tribe. And then the Washicho is the white race. The cannibals are the white race. Yeah, it's the same with, you ever hear of St. Paul, Minnesota? That was the capital of our empire. It used to be called Otonto. And white people, tribal people that got driven from their countries over in Europe, they came there and they lived with us. I can take you a lot of towns in Minnesota who, when you come into town as a Sioux man, you're treated like a king. You know why? Because they were given territories, you understand, to live in and not to be molested, that the Dakota people gave to them. There's a lot of that back where I come from. So it's not always the same, all white men are prejudiced. It's not so. So, no fish on Friday is the fact because of Payne's doctrine. And you got to remember when you ate steak, Indian steak, that was called the long pig. And from everybody that I've ever read on it said the long pig tasted a great deal like the short pig or swine.